Welcome to Loading the Bar with physical training experts Parker McBride and Matt Wasco. Our Fit Lifestyle podcast covers the science of nutrition and fitness, together with the challenges we all face to be disciplined. We'll guide you through the minefields of fads and gimmicks and all manner of BS that tempt us in today's fitness world. Ready to begin? Then let's start loading the bar.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Loading the Bar podcast. I am Parker McBride. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host here, Matt Wasco. How you doing today, Matt?
I'm good. I'm excited for our guests. I haven't seen them in a while. I've missed them in the gym, so this will be nice to see them and talk to them.
Yeah, we've got a couple of great guests today. So Jaeme Simmons and Liz White joining us. They are, they have been workout partners quite a bit in the past, and they're very good friends. So we decided to bring them on together, and they've both got a lot of experience in the health and fitness related fields, and so it'd be really interesting to pick their brains today and talk to them. So how are you guys doing today?
Good.
We're glad you're here.
Glad to be here.
Well, I think they should both. I think their backgrounds are pretty interesting. We'll get into fitness focus, but kind of talk about what you both do.
So I'm a hairdresser, so I own my own hair salon. I've been doing hair for almost 20 years now, so that's what I do to make money, but I also do a lot of other things just for fun.
Yes. What are some of those things that you do for? I know what they are, but obviously it's nothing.
I love to cook, so I guess I'm an amateur home chef. Love to try out just new cooking techniques, which is actually really great from a fitness standpoint because I'm always trying to eat healthy but not boring. So I do a lot of messing around with items to make it healthier but interesting and delicious. I'm an OCR racer, so I love to run. I've done ultra endurance events in the past, and I love to hang out with my friends, and I actually work with the middle school kids at my church, so I do a lot with middle schoolers.
So you're perfect to have on for the podcast. So, all right, Liz.
I am a federal law enforcement officer, and I'm a supervisor, so it takes up all of my time. I work out, and I have since I was in high school. I was a military intelligence officer in the Army for about 10 years. And so work is probably 90% of my time, and my kids are the other. I guess they're not just 10%, but they take up the rest of my time. So a lot of my friendships and therapy come through working out as well. So it's what keeps me functioning every day, and it also keeps me healthy for work so that I can chase someone if I have to.
Yeah, we'll explore that a little bit more for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of essential in the military. It's kind of, they beat it into you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Then you can't go back.
Yeah, you got to pass fitness tests for both military and for law enforcement. So.
Yeah. Well, real quick here, we're going to dive into our Fit Focus segment that we've been doing every week here. So Matt sent me another great article this week. Headline reads, Harvard doctor says animal products are essential for mental health in blow to veganism. Quote, the brain needs meat.
Yeah, so I highlighted a few things on this. This is something that, aligns with our philosophy towards nutrition. It's, when I remember when I was growing up in my 20s and 30s, veganism was the big deal. Health. You want to be healthy, be vegan. And at the time, I didn't have the knowledge that I do now, but I remember thinking that's baloney without doing the research. But a few things that, I highlighted a few things on here. Nutrients, where they talk about nutrients, a zinc statement, and then depression, bone density. So these are all, and muscle loss. So these are all things that when you eliminate meat from your diet, your depression goes higher. So, for example, they have a 21 systematic review where they did 18 studies and compared that to those who don't eat meat. And the research included 160,000 participants. And they found that out of those 35% that are vegetarian, 35% had a chance of developing major depression compared to the meat eaters. It was 19. So I thought that was interesting. And then additionally, vegetarians had a 31% chance of developing anxiety disorder compared to 18% for meat eaters. So going on, bone density, and we knew this. The study of more than 26,000 middle-aged women has revealed that those that do not eat meat and fish have a 33% higher risk of hip fractures and muscle loss. So meat is a very vital. It's not just the protein; it's the nutrients that are in it. The vitamin B12, zinc. I'm trying to think of all the extra ingredients it has in it. Omega-3 fats. So these are all things that are choline, iron, iodine. These are all things that are necessary for brain function. And when you eliminate meat, vegetables, you have to have such an array of vegetables when you're a vegetarian that it makes it very difficult to get that in.
Yeah, for a lot of vegans and vegetarians, I've seen they almost have like this intricate formula of different vegetables and fruits and things they have to eat to get all their nutrients. Or you just, eat meat.
Yes. Well, I saw something about a year ago from Dr. Sean Baker where he was talking about this, and the conclusion of his research was, is vegetables and fruits necessary? And he said, no, they're not. You can go your whole life without eating them. But he says, if you enjoy them, enjoy them. They're people like variety, and I eat vegetables and fruits. But you get all the necessary nutrients that you need for your body from meat, and you get more than you get at a higher density and more bioabsorbable from meat. So,
well, I don't have any personal evidence for this because I've never been a vegetarian. always ate meat, so I don't know what it's like to not eat meat.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever experimented with vegetarian or anything like that?
100% no.
Yeah, also a meat eater.
There's a couple of Netflix specials a while back. I think like Forks Over Knives was one, and I was like, it's a little convincing, but I've also realized as I've gotten older that you can find the research to prove kind of whatever you want. Yeah. And so I think a lot of those type of things, really rely on emotions. And so I don't think it's as valid. And I know I feel better when I'm eating cheeseburgers. But I love a salad. I love vegetables. I love fruit. But yeah, very much an omnivore.
Well, that we had talked about that, what you just alluded to as far as the studies. You got to be careful about the studies that you read, who funds them, and then what were the parameters that they came up with their evidence, their research.
Well, what's the new one that's on Netflix right now that's kind of, it's really big, but it was actually, I think it's called like Beyond Meat or something like that, but it was paid for by PETA. So what do you think they're going to, their conclusion's going to be? So the thing that I think is interesting when you talk about all those nutrients that you are missing, you can buy supplements for all of that stuff. And so I think people think that, I'll just supplement and I'll get it. But that's not as bioavailable as just eating the actual nutrients.
Yes.
And it ends up more expensive. You had to piece all these things together, $20-$30 here or there. You could just get some steak.
Well, I think of my $5.50 a pound steak. And I can eat a pound of steak, get more than I need, or I can supplement like crazy, and it's just going to be more expensive.
Yeah.
So
the other thing that a lot of people, I think, look into vegan and vegetarianism is because they're trying to reduce their carbon footprint. But if you really look into carbon footprints, the carbon footprint of meat is actually less because it doesn't take as much to store and as move it. When you look at, what is the carbon footprint of refrigerating, spinach or lettuce for the 6 weeks it takes to get from Mexico to your grocery store? And it actually takes more to refrigerate and hold that stuff
that's a good point.
Fresh. So
good point.
There's a book called The Omnivore's Dilemma that I would highly recommend if you are interested in figuring out.
Good content.
Anyway.
Yeah. And I really like that this article specifically pointed out the mental benefits.
That's right. Yeah.
It's pretty well known. Anybody that's very studied up in the health industry knows that meat is very good for your body, for building lean muscle mass and the importance of that. But we haven't seen a lot come out about the positive effects on mental health.
And you combine that with going to the gym and working out, you have a double whammy. It's good for going to the gym is good for your mental health, and eating meat is good for your mental health.
There you go.
So,
well, good. So conclusion of that is meat is not only healthy physically and mentally too. You guys need to be making sure you get that protein in.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, well, next I want to kind of move into, I mentioned at the beginning in the intro that Jaeme and Liz were workout partners for some time, and I wanted to have them kind of talk about that, what it was like having somebody for all that time to work out with, and kind of how you guys met and how you guys started working out together.
So when I moved back here in 2020, the end of 2020, I needed someone to do my hair. And a mutual friend of ours recommended Jaeme. And when she started doing my hair, I was like, I want to be her friend. Like, she's so outgoing and fun, and she does so many fun things with her OCRs and races and stuff. And so I just started asking her, how did you get into this? How do you know about these races? I've only heard of 5Ks, and I get really bored with 5Ks. So I wanted to try some of the other stuff. And a lot of the OCRs is stuff I've done in the military and in my training. So I thought it would be fun. And after I asked her, she was like, you should come to the gym with me. And that's kind of what happened. I started going to the gym with Jaeme, and we became friends after that. So.
She came in and got her hair done, and I just started listening to a lot of true crime podcasts because I'm a middle-aged woman, so that's what we do. And she started telling me about a cold case that she had helped solve, and I was like, this is like a true crime just like right in front of me. She's amazing. And just talking about some of the stuff that she did, it was awesome. And I invite everybody to the gym. I think it's hard. I think it's intimidating to walk into a gym by yourself the first time. I know it was super intimidating for me the first time I went to the gym, so I invite everyone. And Liz was one of the ones that actually showed up, and then we just really got to know each other, and we have really similar personalities. We really like the same things. We are both, I would say, kind of interesting women that want to do cool and interesting things, and I find that there's not as many of us out there.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
Yeah, you both definitely like to push the limits.
Yeah.
That's something you share in common.
And there hasn't been anything that I'm like, Liz, we should go do this, that she's like, no. She's everything. She's like, I'm in. And vice versa.
I always liked it when you guys came into the gym. I'd go, oh, I could push these guys a little bit. And it didn't matter what I sit up. I'd sit up, you'd be like, give me a look like, okay.
It's the only look I got.
So, yeah, I know that me and Parker both gave you some pretty intense workouts.
Do you just sit up at night and think, like, what is the most random thing I can make these people do?
You both inspire me when you come in. I got all these things in my back pocket that I can't give to certain people, and then when you walk in, I'm like, yeah, I can give it to Liz and Jaeme.
Yeah, it's kind of like a challenge. Trainer versus trainee, who wins? Can we break you guys?
You always win.
Yeah, but you guys always complete the workout, so really.
I mean, we stay for an hour. I don't know if that's completing the workout.
Well, yeah.
Well, I think you said one time you would love to train the trainers. Didn't you say that? Was that you?
I think everybody probably, all people that get trained.
I was thinking Jaeme said it especially, but maybe I was wrong.
I don't remember that, but who knows? I say a lot of things, so.
Yeah.
So how does the accountability of having a workout partner that you know is going to be there and kind of having that expectation that you're there as well, how does that help keep you guys on track?
I mean, I think for both of us, we're going to work out regardless if one or the other shows up. We're both pretty motivated, and I think it's what keeps me going through the week. If I miss a workout, I don't function well at work. But I'll drive the 25 minutes just to work out with Jaeme so that I have that time with her, because we're both so busy that we just wouldn't see each other at all if we didn't work out together. But it does help when you get up in the morning, you're like, man, I just need 15 more minutes to know that she's waiting. So I'm like, all right, I'm not going to take that 15 minutes. I'll get there. She knows I'm always going to be about 5 minutes late, but I'll get there.
But I give you grace because you drive further. But yeah, I have a hard time sometimes when I wake up and I'm really, really tired and I don't if there's no one waiting on me, then I'm like, oh, maybe I'll go back to sleep. But when I know that you're going to be there, it's very rare that I skip. It's when I really don't sleep well or I'm not feeling good. Definitely had some struggles this past year, which we talked about a little bit beforehand, where there was times that I would text her and I would just be like, I can't keep my eyes open. I'm sorry. I have to go back to bed. But overall, if I know she's going to be there, I'm going to be there. And it's our friendship time. I mean, I see Liz far more than I see some of my other friends, just because 2 to 3 times a week we're hanging out for an hour. And I'm usually trying to outrun her or outlift her, but it doesn't work.
Well, considering we both have spent time with you and we got to know you personally, we got to know your personal lives, and we both know you both have had certain struggles in your life, how does that, when you're dealing with a difficulty at work or a difficulty in your friends or family, how does that relationship, that bond that you've created, help in that?
Well, just being able to meet together and actually chit chat, I feel like that's something that we don't do a lot in our daily lives. I mean, I go to work and then I go home and then it's my husband, and sometimes I want to talk about my husband to Liz. and texting back and forth just doesn't have the same as that, interacting.
Or even a phone call, it's not quite the same.
Well, and I don't have time for phone calls. But when we're in between sets and we're talking about our week and whatnot, so it's my friend time that we're also multitasking to, work out.
Well, it is quite impressive that it's your friend time, and I know that you're doing some pretty intense workouts and you're able to communicate in between those.
Keeps your cardio up, being able to talk between sets.
Well, we talk more, but we get dirty looks from our trainers. Nope, we're doing it.
I know, and I know there's a lot of studies out there that say that, your gym time, you should be 100% focused on what you're doing. And I understand that, and there are days where, I do work out alone and I focus more, but where I'm at in my life, and I feel like where Jamie's at in her life, this is what works best for us, is to meet and have that friendship. It's interesting because our jobs are so different. You would think hairstylist and law enforcement officer, how does that work? But she's this independent, strong woman running a business, and she's, supervising the 4 other stylists, or 5, I don't even know how many, 4 or 5 other stylists in her salon, and trying to keep up with her 2 kids that are the same age as mine, and a husband at home, and all of the same things, where I supervise, way too many men all day long, and I struggle with that, and I don't have another friend with a strong personality like hers to help support that and kind of give me guidance when I go back into work, and to remember that I am strong, and I can supervise them, and I can tell them what I think, because I have a friend that's agreeing with me and telling me and giving me advice. And
well, I think we all need that. We all need that support system, right? I mean, when you're doing your job and sometimes you feel challenged in doing your job, having that someone you can talk to, a friend or your wife or your spouse, that you can talk to, that builds you up, it's real important. So that's the other aspect of this partnership, is that it's not just you have someone who pushes you and keeps you in shape, but you have someone that's there for you. So that makes the bond even stronger.
When we have really similar thought processes with how far we want to push ourselves and we're both people who do all the things. And there's a lot of people in my life that are like, I can't believe you get up that early, or I can't believe you cook that from scratch, or I can't believe you do all these different things. And so it's sometimes when that's all you're hearing, it can be really easy to be like, you know what? Yeah, I am doing too much. I should rein some stuff in. And Liz is doing all the same things I'm doing. And so we build each other up, and she understands my thought process and I understand her thought process. I mean, when you were recovering from your arm injury this summer, like there's a lot of people that have just been like, I'm just not going to the gym. And you kept coming in and pushing that. And there's times when I have different issues that are bugging me, and people are like, you should just rest. You should just stay home. I don't want to stay home. I'm going to go in and do what I can. So it's been really valuable for me to have someone who understands that and can give me advice coming from the same thought process.
Well, you both have come in with like that wrist injury or your knee. Mm-hmm. You both have kept coming in, right? So talked a little bit about that. Like, what is the mindset when you're going in there? What is the negative of not coming in? I mean, we all know it, but what for our audience, what is the negative of not coming in and say, hey, I'm just going to rest my knee today, or hey, I'm not going to come in because my wrist hurts? What's the negative of not coming in? What's the positive to coming in?
I almost never regret working out. I almost always regret not working out. So that's what's really hard in the moment of the decision of I don't feel good or I'm tired. Should I go or shouldn't I? I go, you know what? You're going to be mad at yourself if you don't, or you're going to be. And you have a very stressful job. I have a stressful job. And again, kids and husbands and all of that. That's our chance to blow off steam, really.
Yeah, and you would lose so much. Like if I didn't come in with just because my wrist was bad, I still have the rest of my body and, I need to keep that healthy and going. And I think if I had just taken, the full 12 weeks that it took my wrist to heal off, I would have been starting over everything instead of just my right arm. And I don't want to be that sore. I don't want to come back and start over and be that sore and feel like I'm so much weaker than I was. And then the mental aspect, like if I don't work out in the morning, by the end of the day, I'm just grumpy and irritable, and I don't have anything left for my kids after a long day at work. And it's just something I learned really early on in adulthood, that I need that to help with my mental health. So, and then my friendship, like I'd never see Jaeme if we didn't work out.
Well, and it's a habit, and when you're in that habit and then you take that time off, it's really hard to get back into the habit.
We hear that a lot. We just had another couple on, or a husband and wife on here last week, or was it last week?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was last week, and they'd mentioned the same thing. Missing that one day starts to create a pattern, and you have to break that cycle quickly. So that's another thing why you want to make sure you get in here, because you walk out with that sense of accomplishment. Mm-hmm. You feel like, got that in. You feel really good getting that in. And I think that when you accomplish something every morning with a workout and you put in that workout there, that effort you put into it, it's kind of mentally like you've accomplished something for the day, right? The human condition is we are meant to accomplish something day in and day out. Sitting on the couch and being a couch potato makes us, there's an inherent feeling of like I'm worthless when you sit on the couch, or you do nothing, or you don't strive to produce something in your life, either with your kids, with your job, with your faith. If you're not having some activity, then you feel worthless. So putting that time in and working out is a sense of accomplishment, and it's healthy for the mind. So I think that's what we've alluded to as far as that fitness. It's real important. And I'm assuming you guys discover that. You probably connect those dots between the time you're working out and then you feel when you walk into work, you feel, man, I've already accomplished a lot today.
Absolutely. It's interesting. I usually don't get to work till about 9:30, and then I've started my day at 5 a.m. And sometimes I walk in, I'm like, man, I've already been like up and doing things for 4.5 hours before my workday even starts.
Yeah.
But that's the best part of my day, is that stuff in the morning.
Well, that's real impressive. I mean, I don't want to understate that it's a lot of people don't do that. I mean, you guys get up and you do more before 6 a.m. than the majority of the population does all week. So.
Also, interesting side note, as a hairdresser, like I said, for 20 years, I was really starting to deal with a lot of, I had some rotator cuff issues, and I had some tennis elbow issues, and just being up on my feet, and my back would hurt so bad by the end of the day. And then I started working out 10 years ago, and I've had 0 tennis elbow issues. My rotator cuff is almost never flared up. And so it just helps me live the rest of my life more pain-free, honestly. So it truly is self-care.
Well, it goes with a study I just read this last week, but I don't know if I sent it to you or not, but it's a study that the more you work out, the more you're less likely to be injured, meaning you'll be able to resist injuries better. So that goes hand in hand.
It's kind of like what you do in the gym. You have to do it at a couple levels higher, whatever you're going to do in your everyday life. Then your everyday life becomes easier. So obviously you're using certain muscles a lot being a hairdresser, right? You're doing that all day. You're standing there holding your arms up, cutting people's hair, everything. So if you're working out in the gym and you're doing something that's a lot more challenging than what you're doing as a hairdresser, all of a sudden that's easy for your body. But if you're not working out, what you are doing all day becomes the most challenging thing that you're doing.
Absolutely.
So interesting, I said challenge right there. Tell me a little bit about ultra endurance and Tough Mudders. Those are some very challenging things.
Yeah, they are. So when I first started working out, I accidentally signed up for a Warrior Dash. and
Accidentally.
Okay, look.
Your name just appeared on the list.
Can you explain that to me, please?
Well, okay. So I used to drink a lot of wine.
Okay.
And a client of mine had told me about this Warrior Dash thing. And I don't know, I think I drank some wine. And in the morning, I had an email that said, thanks for signing up for the Warrior Dash. So that's how that happened. So I started drinking less wine because that is not good for fitness. And I had been into my OB that year, and she's great. She's, do you drink? Do you smoke? What do you do for exercise? And I was like, oh, haha, I chase children and I work on my feet. And she's like, haha, but like, really, what do you do for exercise? I said, well, I don't do anything. And so she suggested that it would behoove me to move my body a couple times a week. So I was thinking about that process. So it gave me something to train for. So a lot of my races, that's how it started. If I have something to train for, then I'm more likely to go to the gym and train. So the Warrior Dash was a 5K with 12 obstacles, and it was a blast. I mean, you're adults and you're sliding up and down mud hills and swinging off of things, and it's this big giant playground. And so I totally fell in love with obstacle course racing, and it just kind of got bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I started doing World's Toughest Mudder, which is a 5-mile Tough Mudder course. It runs from noon on Saturday till noon on Sunday. And you go and you run it as many times as you can in 24 hours. So, wow. So the first year that I went was in 2018, and it changes locations every year. And so there's stuff that you can't control, like the weather. So that particular year, it got down to 27 degrees overnight, and you are in and out of water like every 20 minutes. So you're running in wetsuits, and it's this whole crazy little subculture. And I knew a lot of people that were there that year, and they all dropped out because it was so cold. And I just kept going, and I don't know why. Like, I couldn't make myself stop, and I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. And these 5-mile laps were taking me 3 hours, and I had, ice crusting on my face. And that year, there were only 200 people that actually did out of 1,500 that actually did the full 24 hours. Everyone else kind of went in their tent overnight and then tried to get back out. And I only did 35 miles, I think, or 40. I don't remember. Anyway, but that was like such a defining event for me. Like, I had to dig deep, and I had never had to do anything like that before. So that's one of the things I love about ultra endurance events is we live a very cushy lifestyle here in America. And I think there's some really deep mental value to putting yourself in a position where nobody else can do this for you. Like, you either put one foot in front of the other, or you stop and you get in your tent and you dry off and you're done. And I had some really good conversations with myself in the middle of the night, conversations with other people that may or may not have been there. It was wild. So I've done several events since that, but that was my first big major one. And I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and she said, I think you're chasing that feeling. Like, you're still chasing that feeling of that first one. And I think she's right. But also, it's just crazy that I'm a 43-year-old soccer mom, and I can go out and do these things, and it's just one foot in front of the other. That's it. Just over and over and over.
I think a challenge like that, I've had similar experiences when I was younger. I haven't done it at your level as in my later years, but I've done a couple marathons. I've done, inadvertently, I hiked through the Grand Canyon in 14 hours and had on virtually no food in 110 degree heat. But and I remember having some moments like that, like you're talking about, like, am I going to die? But you're like, it's like when you're pushed yourself to the limits like that, it's kind of eye-opening, and you realize, we do have it kind of easy, and so it is a nice to, see what your limits are and go down that route, because I think you discover some things about yourself.
And then you go back to real life and nothing's quite as hard.
Yeah.
Nothing's quite as bad.
It's taking off that mental limit, because I don't know the exact number, but the mind quits before the body almost 100% of the time. And so by doing that, lifting your mental limit and figuring out you still didn't even find your physical limit really, but your mental limit just got way raised. And so now, like you said, you go back to everyday life, you go back to the basics, the things that we're expected to do day in, day out. And it's like, it takes very little effort. It just kind of happens.
One of the things that one of the guys from World's Toughest, that he's kind of the MC and he's the hype guy, and he always says, you don't finish at the finish line, you finish out there and then you make it to the finish line. And that's something that I always really like you have to just give it your all, and then you still have to get back to the finish line. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
You have to decide not to quit.
Yeah.
And decide that you're going to make it, and then find a way to make it, whatever that takes.
So I will say, so 2018, my husband was doing the race with me, and he was having some rotator or some IT band issues. His knee was bothering him. So he was going faster than me, and then he slowed down. We were doing a lap together. He does not like the cold. And nobody thought it was going to be that cold.
Wait a second. I've seen your husband jump in a cold lake.
Okay, yeah, that's been a new thing.
Okay, all right. I was going to say, I saw him do that and thought he was nuts, but
He
go
is.
ahead.
Well, that cold plunge, he's all in. Anyway, so it was close to midnight, and he looks at me and he goes, I think I'm done. I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, my knee, this is just not getting better, and I'm done. I said, okay. And so he took his timing chip off and he was done. And I was talking to a friend later about it, and I was like, he didn't even make it 12 hours. And she goes, when you start saying things like, he didn't even make it 12 hours, you're in too deep. And so it's all about where you're at. And, when you keep raising that bar and raising that limit, then you find you can do things.
Yeah.
Well, the average person will come home after an 8-hour workday and be like, oh, I need to sit on the couch and rest for a long time. And that's 24 hours
Yeah.
that you did that, right? I mean, most people at least sleep for 6 or 7 of every 24 hours, but to be doing intense physical exercise for the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Liz, you have done one of these Tough Mudders?
Yeah, I've done a couple of the 10K ones.
And what was your...
10 miles. You've done 10 miles.
So 10-mile ones.
Yeah, so what was your experience?
Cold water is terrible. And that's the biggest reason I would never do the 24-hour ones. I hate cold water. I like it because I like that. I've had a lot of those experiences that Jaeme talks about in the military and in training, and being in Iraq for a year was probably the hardest thing I ever did. But so for me, it was just kind of, it's fun. And again, it's a friendship. Like I'm 5'2". I physically can't climb this wall by myself. There's no amount of skill that's going to get me over this wall. So I have to rely on my friend to help me get over the wall and team building and stuff. So that's the part that I really enjoy. It was when we went last year, it was like Jaeme and 2 or 3 other women that went with us. And it was just really fun to support each other and have something to do with your friends that's just not eating and drinking. And again, just building each other up. And my life, like I've told you before, my life is just so busy, and I'm pretty introverted, so I don't go out and seek friends very often. So when I can find someone that does the stuff in common with me, and Jaeme brings other people in, it helps, and it's awesome. It's fun to support each other like that. So.
Now, you said Iraq. You were in Iraq. And is that something you can talk about, why it was difficult?
Yeah, I was an intelligence officer, so it wasn't like I was in infantry or something, but being in the desert away from your family and working, they'd say 12-hour days, but they weren't. They were 16-hour days. And then, I still wanted to work out because, you feel like you don't move all day while you're sitting in a command post, watching video surveillance footage or talking to people and, working all day. And then trying to find a way to talk to people back home when the schedule is completely different. And, you can't just pick up the phone and call someone, and I could email, but that's not the same. And I was newly married. We got married about a week before we both deployed, and he was 7 miles away from me at another base, but it might as well have been an entire country away because you can't just pop over. So when I did see him, I'd have to take a Black Hawk helicopter ride over to him, and that's an experience of itself. So for me, the difficulties weren't, I feel like I shouldn't even say that Iraq was challenging because I was a FOBIT, somebody who stayed on the base the whole time and went out just a little bit. But just the challenge of being away from everything and normal food and normal rest and my own room. I shared a room with two other women. If I wanted to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, I had to get completely dressed and put on my shoes. I could never go anywhere alone. My rifle was my purse. It just slung over my shoulder, and I carried it everywhere with me. So it just, I don't know, it's interesting to say that it was so challenging when I know that my experience was so much easier than others.
Would you say it was challenging from a mental aspect?
Yeah, mentally challenging, and it wasn't physically. I mean, physically challenging because my body didn't cope with the water over there. I had I don't even know. They thought I had kidney problems, and I'm still technically a disabled vet because of my kidneys. But at the end of the day, they were like, your body just couldn't handle the water in Iraq. So I had some physical problems as well, but it was definitely the mental challenge that was the hardest.
And you did physical fitness while you were there?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's what keeps you going, just to get out and work. And they still required us to do PT tests, and they required the physical fitness from you as well. So
the military understands the importance of the mental benefits of exercise, for sure.
Yeah. How would you say that your time in the military has helped you now that you're out in terms of just living a healthy lifestyle?
It probably did help me set just kind of a regimen for myself. We were required to show up to PT at 6 a.m. 5 days a week, and as an officer, they don't always make the officers do it, but because all the soldiers had to do it, I would show up anyway. So it really set that the standard for the day is that you're going to get up, you're going to go work out at 6, you're going to work out with other people, you're going to push each other. Just because you can pass a PT test doesn't mean it's good enough. You want that score of a 300 where you max out everything you can. And I was able to do that a couple of times while there, but it just set it up where I always pushed myself for, I'm struggling with the habit. It gave me the habit, and then also the pushing of I want to be the best that I can be for my age, height, weight, mental.
You mentioned a couple things. One, what was it? What do you call it? Someone stays on the base? A what?
A FOBIT.
What's that mean?
So we would call the bases FOBs, forward operating bases. Okay. So if you're like a hobbit, a FOBIT, you stay on the base.
Yeah, and then you said you wanted to score a 300. What does that represent?
So for the PT test, you get up to 100 points for push-ups, sit-ups, and runs. So each category gets up to 100 points. And there's a minimum you have to do. I can't remember what the minimum score is, but there's a minimum score and then the maximum, 300. And really you could get some bonus points if I could do, I think you maxed out push-ups. I think for women it was around 40, 45 push-ups in 2 minutes. And you could get a couple extra bonus points if you push past that. So sometimes I'd push past in my push-ups so that I could run a little bit slower and still get that 300 because they didn't count anything over 300. But yeah, that's what the scores were.
So there's not a lot of women in my life that are as cool as Liz, because there's just not a lot of women that want to do things like that. And then you've continued with it. You got out of the Army and went into being a federal agent and still maintaining. So she came to see me and wanted to be my friend. I was like, I want to be her friend.
Yeah.
Well, we're typically our personalities are attracted to people that are different and are good at things that we're not necessarily good at. And so I think that's interesting where you saw it, you kind of admired certain things about her. She kind of admired certain things about you. And it wasn't necessarily the things that you guys shared together. It was things that were different about each other. And that's where that kind of friendship bond started from. And you guys kind of improve each other in that. So by being around you more, she's going to pick up some of your outgoing personality, things like that. And you, by being on her more, picks up more of that discipline and regimented and things like that. And so it really helps you both out.
Absolutely. She's very inspiring to me.
And you to me.
Well, it's interesting.
And I make her come out and hang out with people.
She does.
which is good, right? It's good to take each other out of your comfort zones.
Well, I see the differences. I mean, introvert, extrovert, tall, shorter. Difference. And when you guys were working out, I kind of knew where your strengths were.
I got so mad at her whenever she deadlifts.
I know.
It's not even fair.
Yeah, or leg press.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything legs.
Think
really.
about how many more steps she has to run, though, to
Yeah,
cover the same
she
distance.
would mention that. She would, like, we were doing walking lunges. She'd be like, Jaeme has to take far fewer steps than I do, so I shouldn't have to walk as far as her.
That's true. It was distance, not
Yes.
amount of lunges. So,
That's right.
Pros and
So
cons.
She would be like, I'm having to take a lot more steps.
but I can outrow her any day.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Tell us a little bit about the rowing incident.
Well, Jaeme did this MR 340 where you paddle 340 miles on the Missouri River, and she described her horrible event, and I thought it sounded amazing. And so
Wait.
I almost died.
Horrible event that sounded amazing. Okay, all right.
yeah, there's just something about being out in nature, and so I went out with her a couple of times, and I was like, man, this is incredible, because you're out on the water and it's just beautiful, and you're like, I'm in the middle of the city and it's still this beautiful with the trees, and you can see the skyline on the water, and it's another event where you just really push yourself. So I tried it, and Jaeme was my support, Jaeme and my husband, and it was the worst weather they'd ever had on the Missouri River for one of these races, and the wind was absolutely insane, and there were waves that were they knocked my boat over a few times. And I had another friend at work who had lent me his very nice boat, and so I got out there and I started paddling, and I made it to the first checkpoint, and I was like, all right, I got this, we're doing good. And then I left that checkpoint and I keep going, and I'm paddling, and a wave comes and it grabbed my paddle and flips me over and kind of twisted. I didn't realize it at the time, but I think what happened is it gave me skier's thumb. It flipped my thumb backwards and just kind of twisted my whole arm.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I want people to understand that she's on the Missouri River. It's huge. It's big. It's dangerous. There's buoys hidden. There's wing dikes. There's Asian carp. Like, this isn't just a little paddle down a creek. Like, you are in the middle of this, 100 feet wide river. So the
Well,
fact that you flipped is terrifying to me.
Before she gets into her story, what's the deal with Asian carp?
Oh, they're an invasive. Have you heard of these?
I've heard of carp.
Okay, Asian carp are an invasive species that have come up the Missouri and the Mississippi River, and they grow to be 40, 50 pounds. And when you startle them, they will jump out of the river and they will hit people because they're just flailing around. And so people have broken, like, there's a guy who broke his collarbone, they've broken arms. So you want to avoid Asian carp because they can tip your boat, and they're truly dangerous. They're not trying to be dangerous, but they just are. So we did a race last summer, and our friends ran into some Asian carp, and one flipped into the boat, and they couldn't reach it. It was in the middle of the canoe, and it just, 20-pound fish. They finished the race, and they're like, "Wow, we have this dead fish. We got to get out of our canoe now."
Oh, wow.
So anyway, anytime you get out into the water, that's so scary to me. And she flipped a couple times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was able to get back in. I think pure adrenaline got me back in, and I kept going. And then the wind got worse and worse, and there was logs and sticks floating in there, which if you hit one of those, it's also going to flip your boat. And then it got dark out, and it's supposed to, they do the race when there's a full moon, and the moon was covered in clouds, so it was so dark out, and there was no other boats around me. And all I could think of is I have to get off this water. This is my mental limit right here in the dark on the Missouri River where I cannot see anything. And I know a few people crashed into buoys and logs and stuff that night. So I finally get close to the checkpoint where I'm going to meet Jaeme and my husband, and he's watching my GPS as I get closer and closer. And you have to this checkpoint, you have to kind of go past it, flip around, and go back in it. So you're going, the current's going to take you past, and you turn around and go back into it. Well, as I made that turn, and of course there's like 10 other boats that have all caught up this time. They're all trying to get off the water because it's so dark. As I made that turn, another boat was doing it as well. And I don't know if I turned too hard or I hit the other boat, but I flip, and I immediately am flushed just downstream.
And as your grounds crew, I mean, it's super dark. We're standing on the ramp. We're like, we think that's, oh crap, she flipped. And then we're just watching her just float on down the river. And it's one of those things, like if she doesn't get back to the ramp, like it's another 15, 20 miles down the river at 4 to 5 miles per hour. You know, like we can't just go get her. We have to meet her at the next spot. And she's just going further and further. It's very... you feel very helpless watching that happen. And then we're like, is that her? I think that's her. It was scary.
And I was lucky enough that there was a rescue boat not too far down the river. And so they rescued me and they pulled me in. And I immediately, I burst into tears. And I was like, they're going to say I'm done because they had to rescue me. And you can't get rescued. You're just going to get kicked out of the race. And so they bring me back to the checkpoint. And I'm upset. And Jamie's like, you're not kicked out of the race, Liz. And I was like, yes, I am. They rescued me. So she went and asked, and they're like, no, we moved you back away from the finish line. We didn't bring you forward to the next one. So you're still in. So I went and I slept in the car for 5 or 6 hours, and because I refused to go back out until it was light out. And then the next morning I got back out there, and the wind and rain started torrential downpouring. And at one point the rain was so bad we couldn't see anything, and there was lightning. And one of the worst places you can be is on the river in the lightning. So myself and 3 other boats kind of pulled to the side for about an hour while we're just getting pelted with rain and hold on to the edge of the river. And we kept going, and it started to clear up a little bit. And I meet Jaeme at the next checkpoint, and I'm like, I'm going to keep going because I'm going to try to finish. And then while I'm out, at one point, I get past Glasgow, and I'm out in the middle of the river. And I have no idea, but apparently they canceled the race because there were so many logs and debris in the water that it was just too dangerous for everybody to keep going.
Well, it was flash flooding too, and so ramps
Oh my
on
gosh.
downriver. This is the only time in the history, the 20-year history of this race, that they didn't cancel it, they ended it. So that's part of their charter with the Missouri River, is that if it ever becomes dangerous, so it wasn't canceled. They were very, very clear about that. Just whatever ramp was the closest to you was your end ramp. But backing up a little bit, when she flipped, she lost her cell phone in the bottom
Oh, yes.
of the Missouri River. And you're required to have a phone when you're out on the river, but you're in the middle of nowhere. So you took Steven's phone, I believe, and then Steven drove back to Kansas City to try and find another phone. Anyway, she had a phone on her, but it wasn't working. We couldn't call her. She didn't have any service. So she leaves Glasgow to go to the next spot, and they decide to end the race. And we can't contact her.
Oh my goodness.
It was 7 hours from checkpoint to checkpoint, and I was in the middle of it. And then other boaters started coming paddling with us, and they're like, so we just heard, I was able to get service, just heard the race is over, and we have to just paddle. And I'm like, I have 3 more hours that I have to just paddle with an ended race. But I did, and I get off the water, and they're helping me because you can't, when you've been sitting like that, you can't stand up, you can't do anything. So they get me to the car, and I'm sitting there, and I'm changing my clothes, and I look down, and my arm is twice the size it should be, and it's completely purple.
She's like, I think I broke my arm. And I was like, what? And then I looked at it. I was like, well, you did something. It was, because was it the tendon? Did it rip or?
Yeah, it was so swollen when I went in the next day to get the x-rays and talk to the doctor. They were just like, it's not broken, but we don't know what's wrong with it because it's just so swollen. But after a lot of physical therapy and different MRIs and stuff, they decided that I had skiers thumb where my thumb had been torn backwards. And luckily it was just a partial tear, so I didn't have to have surgery on my thumb. And it took a long time for me to even touch my thumb to my pinky and have use of my hand again. And then in my arm, I went to several different doctors, and my latest one says that I probably have compartment syndrome in that arm, exercise-induced compartment syndrome, which I've had in both my legs. And the fix for that with your legs is pretty easy. It's about a 4-inch incision down the tissue so that your muscle has room to expand when you use it. But on your arm, it goes from your hand all the way up to your shoulders, the incision. So we are waiting to see how much it affects my daily life. He told me I shouldn't ever paddle again. don't know if I'm going to stick with that because I really enjoy paddling.
That's why we're friends.
I have a score to settle with the Missouri River, so we'll see. We'll see how this summer goes. I go to the range on Monday or Tuesday of this week for the first time since I really injured my arm, and that's the one thing. If I can't shoot because my arm cramps too much, then I'll have that surgery. But I really do not want to have surgery. I don't want to have to recover from that.
Have you done any shooting on your own at the range?
I have done a little bit, and I should be going out and shooting more. I'm just honestly really nervous of how bad it's going to be because it does take so much grip strength, and I know that if I hold a cup of coffee that my hand will start to cramp. And I've noticed without even thinking, I'll just switch hands, or if I'm driving and I'm gripping the steering wheel, I'll switch hands to my left hand. So I think that now that I talk about it, I think it's just nerves. That's why I haven't gone and tried to really shoot. I know that I could shoot and be okay if there was a critical incident. I think I could hold it that long because I have qualified on the range since then, but I haven't done all of the drills and training that you need to stay proficient with it since before. It's been August now, so way too long. I really need to get back out there. So
Yeah.
But you also, if you can't qualify, if you can't shoot a gun, you can't do your job.
right.
So
Right.
that's her number one thing is she can't bust up her arm to the point that she can't do her job. And that's where sometimes the balance can be really hard of like wanting to do these things and then also being able to function in our daily lives.
Yeah, because both of you have jobs that rely on your physical abilities. So you still have to maintain those. And I think that goes for everybody who is just a person living their life. They have a family, they have a job. They want to do challenging physical things, but they want to make sure it doesn't go to the point where they're jeopardizing their life, right? Because it's not worth that, obviously. And so it's hard to find that balance. And I would say you guys probably push those limits more than most people, but still having to keep that responsibility of saying, I've got a family at home, I've got a job, I've got to, still be able to do those things.
I did the MR 340 2 years ago, 2 years before she did. And it was because I have arthritis in my hands from being a hairdresser. So I was able to complete the race. Again, it went very poorly for me, but I did complete it. And then the next day I was in a car accident and I broke my finger. So I was in the hospital and they're like, well, does your hand hurt? And I said, yeah. They're like, well, from what? And I was like, well, it could be from this race. It could be from this car accident. Like, I don't really know. But I couldn't work for 3 weeks. I really shouldn't have worked for 6, but if I'm not working, I'm not making money. And so that was really eye-opening for me that, I know it was a car accident. There was no way to prevent that. But even when I go out and I do my OCR stuff, I could probably be better at it if I would give it my all. But there's certain obstacles and things that I'm like, if I fall off that and I land wrong, I'm going to sprain my ankle, break my leg, things like that. So I'm always holding back just a touch so that I don't put myself in a position where I wouldn't be able to work.
Well, I think, we talk about this in the gym a lot. When we're training people, we want them to use the best form possible to mitigate the chances of injury. And so there's a preparation. We stretch, we do warm-ups, get that blood flowing, and then we really work on good form before I ever get real heavy. And, me and Parker have both done some, what I'd call heavy lifts in the gym. And, but there was a ton of preparation, and I'm including months of working out, practice, working on your form, working on all your ancillary muscles. Those are all preparation for something. So what? We don't get injured, right? So I kind of correlate that to what you guys are doing, is that there's a ton of preparation, the food you have to bring, the rest you have to have during those races, timing strategy, knowing your limits. Those are all things, that preparation, and then having a backup plan where you've got the phone on the boat, so we can have communication, because you're really pushing the boundaries of there is an absolute danger to what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And so preparation is paramount, probably to a greater degree, because there's so many variables. Because, hey, if I'm laying on the bench, I kind of know what my variables are, right? But when you're out in the water on a canoe, you don't know that stump's coming right at you in the dark. So you have to adapt. It's a very different type of thing. So it's I'm intrigued. I know you've pushed me a couple times. You need to do this. You need to do this, and I'm like, I know what it's going to take for me to do that. So,
Got some races coming up.
You might accidentally find out you signed up.
Stay away from the wine.
yeah, really. No, I could see suddenly my name shows up and get an email. Jaeme.
Well, my husband, poor guy, for years and years, he's like, I don't sign up for anything. I just get an email in my inbox. And I'm like, well, I like hanging out with you, honey. You're going to come do stuff.
Yeah.
Jaeme, talk to me a little bit about how nutrition plays a role in your ability to do these things, because Matt mentioned the importance of nutrition there, and you talked earlier about your interest in cooking, and not just cooking, but cooking in a way that's healthy and makes healthy, interesting meals.
Yeah. So when it comes to racing, nutrition is super, super important. And that's one of the things I've always said. I'm not super fast. I'm not super strong, but I'm really good at preparing. And so so when I went and did the World's Toughest Mudder this last November, I had a list of, this is how many calories I want per hour. This is how many carbs. This is how much sugar per hour. And then I have several different supplements that I take. And then my girl that was my grounds crew, she knew exactly how much I was supposed to have to make sure that I was getting the right levels of sodium, electrolytes, all of that stuff in. And in those races, it's interesting because sometimes a peanut butter and jelly sandwich is going to be what you want. Sometimes it's actually going to be like a slice of pizza. I have a friend who's a professional racer, podiums constantly. This guy eats cleaner than anyone I've ever met. And I watched him at the race a couple years ago shoving Oreos and Twizzlers into his face, because those are like the fast carbs and sugars that you need. So it is really interesting when you're doing these endurance events. It is a very different type of nutrition than what you're doing in your daily life. So I meal prep. So I make whatever I'm going to eat for the week at the beginning of the week. And so, which is nice because I'm making good decisions for myself on Monday. So on Thursday, when I want tacos, I'm like, no, eat this thing that you've made for yourself. But I love to cook. And so I will make a teriyaki sauce from scratch with liquid aminos and, things like that, with like honey, instead of using something that's pre-made with a lot of chemicals and stabilizers and things like that in it. I know there's a lot of people that'll just eat ground beef and rice and just, eat, and that's just so boring and terrible for me to choke down. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to get some ground bison and I'm going to cook it in this certain way where it gets a little crispy and get some caramelization on it that's like natural, and that makes it more interesting. And then you add some herbs and some spices to it that makes it better.
Well, we have 3 different levels here. Parker can eat ground beef with absolutely nothing on it. And rice.
So
he
gross.
can do that every single day.
I think
and
I've
not have
seen
a
you
problem.
do that.
Yeah. I have to have I put a little bit of salt on it, maybe a little Italian seasoning and some rice, and then I'm good. And you go to the next stage where it has to be a lot of variety, which most people are like that. They have to have variety to their food, which, if I have someone in the gym because you said that earlier about it can't be boring, right? And I know that's one of the top complaints about nutrition when you're eating clean is it gets boring. And so I'll send them to Jaeme because I have a tendency to say, hey, just eat it.
Well, I will say, I remember being at the grocery store once and buying some protein powder, and the lady is that protein powder any good? I was like, I don't know, it's fine. She goes, well, it's so hard to choke down sometimes. And I'm like, it takes 30 seconds to chug a protein shake. I don't care if it tastes like chalk. I don't care if it tastes like vegan death, like Shakeology did. That stuff was so bad. Anyway, you just chug it. You just do. It's, so, but when it comes to what I'm like actually physically eating, it's nice to have a little bit of variety. I made myself these breakfast burritos the other day. They're terrible. I didn't put any cheese in them, and I used a chicken sausage instead of regular sausage, but I'm like, it is what it is, and I'll just eat it. So there's got to be a little bit of balance of you eat what's good for you because it's good for you, because it's good for your goals, and then you've got to enjoy life.
Well, talk to me a little about how do you come about your food? I mean, both of you actually. How do you guys come about your food to prepare you for your events? I mean, are like Me and Parker, I mean, most of my food is from the farmer's market or the natural or nature's grocer or Sprouts. But I don't, my diet's not varied. I eat eggs, yogurt, and meat. That's it. Every day. Oh, and my shakes. That's all I eat. Eggs, yogurt, and well, fish on Fridays now. But so my diet's very unvaried, you know. So
I think Liz and I eat very differently because she doesn't have as much time to eat at work. So she'll tell me, well, I had a protein bar for lunch. And I'm like, how do you do that? I do a lot of meal prepping. So like I said, I've made 30 breakfast burritos and I froze them, and then I can just microwave them and I know everything that's in them. But I have a lot of cookbooks. I'm not a Whole30 person, but the Whole30 cookbooks are actually really, really good. So I usually alter them a little bit. I add rice and add some different things to them, but it's a lot of very simple ingredients, basic whole ingredients. Shalene Flanagan and Elise, I can't remember her last name now, has a couple books called Eat Slow, Run Fast. And so those are really great cookbooks for athletes. They're both Olympic marathoners here in America. And so they've written a couple of cookbooks and they say, okay, this is great for a pre-race. This is great for post-race. And it talks about like, okay, bison is really high in iron and this is why you should try to get ground bison if you can, and different things like that. And then they've got, long run muffin recipes and different things like that. So I probably have 50 or 60 cookbooks in my house.
how many hours a week do you take to prep?
I usually do it sometimes Sunday afternoons, a lot of times Monday afternoons. I would say maybe 3 hours from start to finish of breakfasts, meals for myself, and then meals for the family. So I'll pre-cook for my family a lot of times.
How much time would you give if you got paid?
If I got paid to do that, that's just what I would do.
Can I pay you to make my lunches, please?
Yeah, yes. I'll just double everything up.
I'm seeing a possibility here. I'm just saying, but anyway.
I know people have said that before. I don't think I think for a home cook, I'm pretty good, but I don't think I'm professional level at all. But I really enjoy cooking. I put my headphones in, I listen to a podcast, I listen to music. I usually don't work Monday afternoons, so the kids are at school, so I'm just prepping myself for the week. But when you do all that prep work, then it's just, you don't have to think about it later.
Yeah.
So that helps keep me on track is by doing that, because it's really hard in the moment of I'm starving to make a good decision. What are my options on my way home from work? My options are Pie 5, Wendy's. I think there's a McDonald's somewhere in there, so there's not a place where I can grab, a salad and a 6-ounce steak that's cooked perfectly to my liking,
Liz, you mentioned you're really busy and you're probably getting those situations where, hey, I'm hungry and I'm on the go. I have someone that we all know, Lexi. She's a nurse and she has really perfected her ability to not have time to eat, but she eats healthy, and she's getting in without fail, at least what she tells me, 160 grams of protein a day.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's real good. And she's looking really good. So, I could definitely see her having a chat with you and sharing her tips and tricks. So I could definitely talk to her and pass along things that she does, because being a nurse, she works through the night, and it's a challenge. She says, I'm eating yogurt and cottage cheese on the fly, So.
Yeah, my problem is that I don't always have access. I do have an office, and I do spend a lot of time at the office, but I don't always have access to being able to heat it up. Or as a supervisor, and I've been a supervisor officially since October, but I've been doing it for about a year, and I have not figured out how to balance life as a supervisor. And so I've got to go out and build relationships, and I have 18 people that work with me, and I've got to work on each one of those relationships, and it's got to be a very trusting relationship with what we do. So I'll go to lunch a lot with people, and now I'm eating out, or if I travel, now I'm eating out when I'm traveling. So I know that I need a better system, but with all of the stuff that's been going on in Kansas City with the major shootings, several major shootings, and an Independence officer being killed, I have not stopped working. I get up at 5:30. I go to the gym and I go to the office. I'll take my kids to school, and there's times where I'm calling Steven and I'm like, hey, I can't pick him up today. I'm doing something at work, and I might get home from work at 7 and then I'm not making dinner and I'm not preparing for the week. And if I'm home on the weekend, I might be catching up on some of the paperwork for work. And the last thing I want to do is stand in the kitchen. And my husband does cook a lot for us, but he's been working a lot too. He's the same job as I do. So I don't have an answer. I don't want to do it, and I don't care about food that much. So I just try to make the best choice I can. I always start my day with protein, and I know that I've gotten a lot better about it. And even if it's just a protein shake or eggs, or I found a protein cereal that I kind of like. So I'll start my day. So at least I know, like, all right, I've gotten at least 50 grams of protein in. So the rest of my day, I've got to just try to choose protein at every meal. So if I go out to lunch, I'll choose some sort of chicken. I might choose the chicken sandwich with fries, but I just eat all of the chicken and like a few of the fries, and then I go on about my day. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is I haven't figured out that part. Just try to make the best choice I can and keep going.
Well, I know, Parker, earlier you mentioned, people have 8-hour days, and I was like, not Liz.
Yeah.
There's times when we're supposed to meet up, and it's 9 p.m. She's like, look, I just got home from the day. And she does have a very, very stressful job. And so it's impressive that you do work out as much as you do.
No, I wouldn't be able to function if I didn't. So right now, my life is working out, work, and my children. So any free time I have, like I do have free time Sunday afternoon, but I want to spend it with my kid. And I should bring them into the kitchen and have them be a part of cooking, and my daughter does enjoy it, but I probably won't. I'll probably make them go for a walk with me, though, to get outside. That's usually what I do.
Well, it's kind of like anything. It's like when we have a lot going on in our lives, I know I'm the same way. When you know there's change that needs to happen, sometimes to make that change means a mountain needs to be moved, right?
Yeah.
It's not something that's, because I know, like, if I want to make a change, that means everyone in the family is going to have to adjust. And that's not just you making that change. All the family members now have to adjust. Mm-hmm. And so that makes it even a bigger challenge. So I get what you're saying. And I know, like, when I wanted to make changes in the family, as far as us being more productive as a family, like us going out together, like, it sounds crazy, but I've really been pushing, like, hey, we're going to spend time together as a family. All the way from my 30-year-old all the way down to my 17-year-old. And it's been a challenge, lining up everyone's schedule. Everyone's got their own things going on. And we were able to accomplish it a few weeks ago, but it's everyone has to adjust, right? But it's like it took a lot of time for everyone to put their level of priority up. It's kind of like how you treat the gym. Mm-hmm. The gym is an absolute, right? It's necessary for daily function. So I finally said to my family, I'm like, listen, we have to spend time together. We don't know what's coming down the road in the next few years, and we need to have that strong bond. So I want you all to seriously, please, especially the ones that are adults, I can't say it's mandatory for you to be here, but I want us to spend time together, and so that I think that's paramount in all of our lives. And fortunately, that's starting to happen, but it took almost a year to get that done. To where my kids as adults start to come and say, okay, I'll rearrange my schedule. My son Peter had all these plans, but he stopped his plans early to go be with us that day. So I understand that challenge. It's not as easy as just saying, this is what I'm going to do this, because you're tired, you have other priorities, and you have to kind of slowly move that ball until you can get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I in my life, I prioritize sleep, the gym, my children, and work. And like I said, I'm it's been a year and I still can't figure out how to fit it in and how to make that balance work. And everyone just, even at work, they're like, just go homeless. I'm like, well, what person am I going to let down by going home right now? Because there's always someone when I'm supervising 18 people, and then I've got, the 3 at home that mean the world to me, and plus all of my friends and stuff too. So to me, it's not just like, just go home because you're what's most important. It's like, well, is it all right if I let this person down? Are they going to be okay if I walk away from this? And I'm struggling to find that balance. So for me in my life right now, the food choices I'm making are kind of good enough. Maybe they're not. They felt good enough, and then I've been really sick on top of it all. In fact, yesterday when I definitely had some really bad problems with acid reflux, and my husband spent about 5 minutes while I was in the shower just like yelling at me, not yelling at me because he cares, just like, Liz, you are run down. You are doing too much. You're not prioritizing yourself. He's like, you can't go to work today. And I'm like, I have to go to work today. I have people that count on me. And I had set up a kind of a team building with my group that we were going to go have dinner and a few drinks together because it's so important for us for work. And I had been planning it for a month. And I said, I can't be that sick because you're yelling at me. If I was really sick, you wouldn't be yelling at me. So I did it anyway. And I do recognize that something's got to give or my body is going to shut down. And I'm, like I said, sleep is what I have to get 7. I aim for 7 hours every night. And if I can't get that 7 because of work or something, then I won't go to the gym. There are days where I have to get up for search warrants and stuff and I can't get 7, I'll get 6 or 5.5. But so that's first, is the 7 hours of sleep, and then the gym, and then, making sure that I'm there to drive my kids to school, because getting the kids in the cars when they talk to me, that's when I get them to open up. So I try to pick them up and bring them home from their sports. Stephen will usually drop them off, or we have a neighbor that we pay to drive them, but they're usually done around 7:30, so I can usually get there in time to see them. So,
well, I'll say this, because a little bit of what you're saying, I see it. I have in my wife, and I think you both are. You have a lot. Both of you have a lot of people who depend on you. A lot of people that need you, and my wife is that way. She is a pleaser, and she wants. And I don't mean that you guys are pleasers, but it's inherent to her personality that she wants to make sure her boss is happy. She wants to make sure all the work is done. Even the people at her job would say, did you stay up all night to do this? And she goes, yes. She goes, please don't do that. Because she's just like, over the top, get this done, without fail, beat the deadline. I mean, she's that way. And I would say, remember your priorities, because what's going to end up happening, and did happen, and she's getting better at it, is that she just runs herself right into the ground, where she physically cannot function. She either just runs herself to physically being sick or has a mental breakdown, and where she just has to take that day. But she will push herself until she can't even move. And you don't want to be in that situation, right? So it's like, if you start, and I think you do it very well, is that you do a lot of preparation. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think you guys are good for each other, that you guys can learn from each other and prioritize. But your job is so stressful. I think that's what you're learning right now, is where are these de-stressors I can find in my life that I can, I know I manage these 18 people, but I have 3 kids at home. They're more important than these 18 people, So that's the balance we get, because we all do it. All of us do it.
Yeah, absolutely. The most challenging thing is, at the end of the day, they all want to stop in my office on their way out the door. And that's where I'm like, it's been 2 hours, I have to go. So I'm good about, like, my kid needs me, I have to go. And I can cut a conversation off when I know that I need to be home for my kid. But I'm not good at cutting the conversation off to be like, I need to be home so that I can prepare my food for the next day. Like, that's the difference, right? Mm-hmm. Like, no, I told my kid I'd be there, I have to go. I don't mind ending this conversation. But when I don't have that, I'm not I'm not good at being like, well, I need to go for me because I need to go home and do something for me.
I think you are very, very passionate about your job, and unfortunately, it's a job that will never be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
Just with everything going on in Kansas City, there's always more work to do. Something that I learned a long time ago, or just kind of came to peace with in myself, is that I can't be good at everything at once. So if I'm being a good wife, I'm not being a good business owner, and I'm not being a good mother. When I'm being a good business owner, I'm not being a good wife, I'm not being a good mother. And when I'm being a good mother, I'm typically not being a good business owner and a good wife. I can really only be very good at one thing at a time, but I have to balance, okay, so like I've invested in my kids, and so now I'm going to do a date night with my husband, even though I feel like I don't want to leave my kids at home, to eat Totino's party pizzas again, which is the only thing that my son knows how to cook for himself. And then there's times when I'm not being a good wife or a good mother because I have to work. I have to, I have to pour into my business so that it can provide for my family. And I think that's one of the hardest things, is finding the balance of what am I going to focus and be good at today. And then somewhere there's got to be us.
Yeah.
We have to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And it's a constant reevaluation of where you're at in those priorities, because it is a balance. They all have to stay afloat, right? And if one's suffering, that one needs some attention, and constantly looking at that.
Yeah, I think for you put a lot of priority in you and investing in yourself, and you're doing that as well. But you also put a lot of priority in your job is very serious, right? I mean, it's like a lot of responsibility, and I don't even know how to describe that, the pressure that must be. But at the same time, it's like, to do that job well, you got the fitness right. It's like, and I'm kind of the same way. Sometimes when I'm in the gym and I'm talking to somebody, I was like, well, I really need to be getting home and doing something that's important. And it might be me and Parker. We enjoy talking to each other. Mm-hmm. We have a nice time talking to each other. We both have places to be.
Yeah.
But we enjoy that, right? Mm-hmm. But sometimes he's married now and I'm married, so we're like, we need to get home to what's important too. The family comes first, and sometimes we have to think about, if I'm correctly fed, our nutrition's good, then I'm a better husband, I'm a better father, I'm a better worker, so those are good too.
So do you guys cook for yourselves?
Yes.
Okay, so you make all your own food, meal prep. Parker, same thing?
Nope.
No, I do.
I don't hardly think I've cooked a meal since I got married. But.
Oh, that's lovely. My husband had to learn how to cook because I was getting home from work too late and he was hungry. And I was like, okay, well, here's some recipes. Not the answer he wanted, but he has gotten better at cooking, just little bits. But and that's what's hard, I think, sometimes, like, as women, nobody's cooking for me. If I was like, Brian, can you meal prep this for me? He might try, but it would be awful. I mean, I don't know if he's going to listen to this.
I got to be a good cook during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. I was cooking a lot.
Yeah.
And that's where my perfectionism kind of comes in handy, because I got pretty good at it. And but things have shifted, and Beth's cooking a little more of the dinners, and I'm cooking a lot of the prep meals, like things that kids eat, pull out of the fridge and stuff like that.
So will she cook according to your dietary preferences for dinner for you?
She thinks about it.
Okay.
She always considers it. She knows there's nothing that goes in front of me that doesn't have protein on it.
Okay.
Like now Lent's been a little more of a challenge. Like, I'm just saying, it's like, on Fridays, I mean, even last night, she sent me a text, pasta or fish? You guess.
Can you have shrimp?
Yeah.
I mean, shrimp's super high in protein.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I said fish.
Okay.
And I try to make it, she works too. So I try to make it as easy as I can. I like pretty much any protein she suggests. I'm like, good, I'm fine with it. Whatever you want to make, as long as it's got protein, that's all I care about. And so that's, but usually by the time I'm coming into lunch, I've got all my protein in.
Yeah.
I'm not sorry. By the time I'm coming into dinner, I have all my protein in. So dinner is just kind of like a plus.
You have some more flexibility.
Yeah.
I'll never forget sitting at the gym, putting my makeup on to go to work, and it was like 9:30, and you were like eating a steak, just a steak. You just microwave just a steak. I was like, that's just like your snack.
And that was meal number 2.
Yeah, that's right.
It inspired me. So I'll go get a nice cut of eat beef, and I undercook it slightly because I do have to microwave it at work. But just that and some vegetables, and it's good to go.
Christy was talking to me this morning, and she goes, well, how many, I was eating after the gun show this morning, and we're eating during it. And she goes, well, how many grams of protein do you have? And I said, I've got about 120 in me right now, and it's 9 o'clock in the morning. So
I just can't physically eat that much. That's what when I'm really trying to get high protein, I feel like I'm just shoveling my face full of food.
It's because and earlier in my training, I got into the evenings, and I'm all sitting at 120 grams of protein. It's like, oh man, it sucks. I was like, I'd rather get it all in early, and then by the time I go into the evening, it's smooth sailing.
Okay.
So
the other issue I have with I don't like to do artificial protein like protein shakes, protein bars. I'll do a protein shake every day, but I don't want like the majority of my protein to come from that. But I've done like really high egg whites, like, 6 egg whites a day, things like that. And I was informed by my husband I have to stop because I get a little stinky. So that's the hard thing with eating that much protein is I fart a lot.
Anyway,
I found that's probably more of a culprit of the protein powder and artificial protein than it is the actual natural sources.
Really? Okay.
That's kind of what I found.
I haven't had flatulence or whatever they call it.
Do other people deal with this? Like the gyms would smell so much worse, I feel like. So I just don't know if it's like my system.
Well, and everybody's digestive systems are sensitive to different things.
Yeah.
So you have to find that for yourself. And
egg whites are out
kind
for me.
of avoid those things. But
I feel like I bashed nutrition a lot in my family. I should point out that it's very important to everyone in my family. My son is 13, and he's very, very small. So we do eat a lot of protein, and we encourage it a lot with him. He just has to eat calories regardless of what it is. So we try to get protein in him when he's sitting with us, and then he can just eat whatever. But my husband does cook, and he does cook good meals, so I do come home to a pretty good meal most nights.
Nice.
That's good.
Steven is the best.
He's pretty great.
Yeah.
Very good.
Well, while we were talking here, I kind of thought of a question for each of you that I wanted to kind of use as a final question. So I'll start with you first, Jaeme. Share with us either one or two, whatever's kind of on the top of your head, really good recipes that you found that you've been liking lately that people listening could use to try to make them a healthy meal.
So I like these because I can pre-make them. I actually did this when I was grounds crewing for her for the MR340, and I like this thing hot or cold. But the cottage cheese, blended up cottage cheese is the whole rage right now. So you blend up cottage cheese and enchilada sauce and some taco seasoning, and then I grill chicken, dice it up, mix that with fat-free mozzarella cheese with the cottage cheese sauce, and then make it into a burrito and then grill it. So it's super high protein, and it is so good. It's delicious. You could probably add rice.
Send me the recipe.
I will. You probably add rice if you need like some carbs, but it's fast. It's easy. Look, I love a salad. You can't eat a salad fast. And so I a lot of times I have an 11-minute lunch break, and I need something that I can just shovel in. So that's on repeat. I'm having that probably every third week. So I'll send you the recipe.
Interesting. And Liz, my question for you, earlier we brought up true crime podcasts, and I thought maybe, I know there's certain things you can't talk about from law enforcement, but give us a little snippet of something that you've seen in your work in law enforcement that's been interesting.
I don't know.
Can you tell them about when you got hit by that guy?
Oh, so it's a funny story, I guess. We were we do controlled buys. You have a confidential informant, and they go buy guns and drugs or whatever. And it was right before Christmas, and we had just finished a controlled buy. So when we do that, we have to be very safe and make sure if we end up having to go into this house where there's 5 or 6 people that are selling drugs and we have to rescue someone. So we usually have at least 10 agents out there. And we had finished it, and we were heading back to the office, and I was at 27th and Paseo, so super nice area. And I was just sitting at the light, and all of a sudden someone just slammed into my car. And I got hit pretty hard, sent my watch alarm off, and I was kind of dazed. And so I get on the radio, and I was like, hey, guys, I just got hit by a car, just kind of giving them a heads up since they might be in the area. And I go to get out, and so I flip on my my red and blue lights, and I go to get out of my car, and the guy just swerves around me and takes off. And I was like, and so I'm still kind of in a daze. I get back on the radio, and I was like, oh, never mind, he just took off. And they're like, hold on, Liz, what was the car, and which way did they go? So I give them the description of the car and which way they went, and I kind of pull off to the side, and like I said, I think I had a little of a concussion from it. And the next thing I know, there's 2 people with me, and then others are calling out on the radio which direction they got this guy going and where he's at. And 5 guys had followed this car. They found it, followed it. The helicopter happened to be up and not doing anything, so he helped follow it, and they got the guy pulled over and arrested for hit and run, and he drunk driving and outstanding warrants as well. So he hit the wrong person on the wrong day. That's kind of a funny story of being in law enforcement as a supervisor of 18 people. But the one that Jaeme and I met on, I was telling her about. I just moved here, and a detective in one of the small rural towns saw that ATF was doing a big plug for violent crime in Kansas City, and he called and just said, can you, any way you can help me with this case? And I helped him. I helped him talk to some people because I didn't have anything going. I just moved here and was looking for work. So I helped him, and I helped him talk to some people. We interviewed probably 10 people, and I helped him write some search warrants. And at the end of the day, her body had been found in the middle of the woods, naked and shot by some mushroom farmers a few years ago. And this is all public information. You could look it up. It just wouldn't have my name on it. But her body was found in the woods in 2018, and they still just was a cold case. They didn't know who had done it. And just a fresh set of eyes, helped him write him some search warrants. And one of the search warrants we wrote was able to put someone's phone with her phone and out in the location where he was. And he has not been prosecuted yet, but it's out there. It's just the prosecution system is rough in Missouri. But at the end of the day, we did solve her murder. So this is a pretty good one.
Well, and it was interesting to hear her talk about like using cell phone tracking things to connect the dots and stuff like that. And it's stuff that you see on CSI or, SVU or Law and Order and stuff like that. But to listen to someone like actively talk through how they did it was so cool and so interesting.
Yeah, that's fascinating
to me.
Doesn't work as well as it does in the movies. I wish it worked that well, but it does. It can give us some good leads, but.
Well, and then there's other interesting things. Like she was telling me a story one time about they were tracking down some guy, and he was in the car, and they weren't sure if it was the guy they were looking for, and he went into the gas station. So then she went in to see if she could get a picture or a face on him. And I said, well, what gas station was that? And she tells me, and I was like, Liz, that's the one by my house. She's like, I know. And I was like, no, what?
If we only knew.
Well, and that's
probably going on all around us.
It's been very eye-opening for me being friends with her, just kind of what is really happening in Kansas City. And I think in the suburbs, and stuff is happening in the suburbs as well. But, you go about your nice little life and you don't really think about all this really not great stuff.
Yeah.
That's going on. So, and I have a daughter who wants to be a police officer, and I respect you so much. I don't know I want my daughter to be a police officer. It's scary.
Yeah.
So I worry for her safety. But she's passionate about solving crimes, and I appreciate that.
I think we all admire what Liz does, that's for sure.
Well, it's a necessary public service for sure. We wouldn't have our country that we have without it.
We appreciate your support.
All right. Well, we talked about some really great stuff there. That was some really good questions answered, and I'm sure we could go on a lot longer. There's a lot of topics here that I'd love to dive more into, but we're kind of running up on our time for today. So, Matt, did you have anything else you wanted to ask?
I have
the ladies
lots and lots of questions, but we are up to our time.
Okay.
So, well, maybe we'll pick this up at another time.
Any last things you guys want to leave our listeners with before we go?
I mean, we're kind of here to talk about being workout partners, and I think that's awesome. I think if you can find somebody that you click well with, it really can help for me, it's much more motivating to have someone that I know that I'm meeting. And then just being in a great gym where I really enjoyed coming in and like chatting with you guys and hanging out. So, and Liz and I are both very over-functioning women, but we still manage to make it to the gym, and we have kids, and we have jobs and careers, and if I can do it, anyone can do it, honestly. Like, make time for yourself, get yourself to the gym, or just go on a walk. Go on a walk every day, something, movement.
Any last words, Liz?
No. I don't know. I don't recommend people live my life, but I love it. I love every aspect of it, and I wouldn't change a thing. So.
All right, there you have it. Well, we thank you guys for listening to this episode, our 13th episode of the Loading the Bar podcast. So hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll be back next week with another episode for you guys.
All right, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, see you guys later.
Hey, look at you. You've completed another milestone by finishing this episode of Loading the Bar. Your future self thanks you profusely. Loading the Bar is podcasted from Lee Summit, Missouri. Email us at cpt.kansascity@gmail.com. Forge ahead and share your progress. And we'll see you back here for another episode of Loading the Bar.